Hey everybody, and today on The Fan Awakens we talk about the movie we've all been waiting for, The Force Awakens. Okay, first things first. I really love this movie. I mean, I really did. I liked the way it played. I liked the way it felt. I liked the way it looked. It felt like the Star Wars movie that we hoped it would be. I liked the characters. I really loved Finn and Poe. I loved Finn and Poe together as a duo. I loved Kylo Ren. I really liked where that was going, where his story went, and most importantly, I loved Rey. Rey all day. She stole this movie out from under everybody, which is no small trick. So I would say, I mean, she's the thing I come away with just loving the absolute most. Stepping back for just a minute, I will say that the one thing I was afraid would happen did happen, and that was that the anticipation and the constant counting down and the constant thinking about when the movie would get here really played a part in my ability to calm down and actually enjoy the movie when it happened. And I knew this was going to happen, and so it didn't sort of surprise me. But I'd like to know if other people had the same issue. I mean, when Thursday finally got here, I was so excited. I had the kids with me. We all got to the theater plenty, way early. We had a lot of time to sit and think about it and count down the last hour and a half or so. And it was just building to a fever pitch of will I be able to chill out enough to watch this movie and not take every moment and everything that happens and think, oh, did I like that part? Okay, what's next? Did I like that part? And that's hard to do. And I did just fine for the most part. But yeah, it's like what they say in baseball. I felt like I had the yips, where you just can't calm down enough to make a simple throw from first base to second base or something. So that was interesting, and I still certainly enjoyed the movie. But man, it's tough to chill out enough to watch something when you've just been spent so much of the last couple of years just thinking about it and waiting for it. And I mean, it was fine, and I think in the end, it worked out well. When I left the movie, I loved it, and I did really enjoy it, and I thought it was great. And but I had some sort of nagging little things about it that kind of bothered me. That were sort of they were small, but they were kind of hard not to dwell on a little bit. And so over the next day or two, I was talking to people and thinking about it and chatting with them and stuff. And then finally, I got to go back to the movie a second time, and that made all the difference in the world. I went there. I wasn't with the kids this time. I got to sit down and relax and just let myself be more immersed and engrossed in the movie. And the second time through was much, much cleaner, much better. I was emotional about, more emotional in the right spots and things like that. And I think, I think that I could see, some people struggling with that. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know. But I have read many people say that they liked it a lot better on the second viewing. Alright, so spoilers if you haven't seen it. The big thing in the movie is Han Solo dying. And that's one, I was unspoiled for the whole thing. I really didn't know anything, but that is one thing that I had kind of gotten in my head, thought was a very big possibility, for reasons that, Harrison Ford seemed like he might be only willing to do one movie, or it just seemed like it kind of fit the story also. That was one thing I tried not to build up too much in my head. One of the mistakes I think a lot of people make is they get an idea about a potential plot point or a potential happening that could occur in a movie, and they make a judgment about whether they'd like it or not without waiting to see how it plays out. And you can't do that. You really can't. I mean, you can decide you didn't like something after, but you're really, really looking for trouble if you say, well, if this happens, I'm not going to accept it. So I tried really hard not to do that, but I kept the nagging feeling that Han was going to die and that I was going to be disappointed by that bugged me. And I can only say that I liked the way it worked out. I did. I was okay with it because it was interesting. You know, it wasn't just that he went out in a blaze of glory, sort of defending somebody or sacrificing himself, which might have been fine too. But instead, it was much more interesting. And along the same lines, there, Kylo Ren is more interesting than I thought he might be. And I really like Adam Driver, but I didn't know, how interested in him I would be. And then he became very interesting because, we find out his name is Ben Solo. We find out he's the son of Han and Leia. We find out that he, was very, strong in the Force, and went to train with his uncle Luke Skywalker, and he basically turned bad and created a lot of problems, and I guess killed a lot of people or something, which we don't fully know yet. So yeah, it was much more interesting, and that sequence there with Ben and his father Han Solo was really deep and really amazing. And again, the first time I watched it, I mean, I was impressed by it, but I wasn't necessarily that moved by it. And again, I blame it on just having the first viewing jitters. The second time around, I mean, I was really deeply moved by it, and so it was awkward for me on the first viewing, but on the second viewing, it felt like it fit right in. And so I'll say that, I mean, I think they did the right thing there. I think they took it in the right direction. Really, it makes that what's going to happen with Kylo Ren or Ben Solo just that more serious and that more interesting. So we'll really be spending a lot of time in the next 15 months or so just thinking about that. I think another thing that initially troubled me and doesn't so much now is and a lot of people have mentioned the pace of the film, especially in the second half. It feels rushed, it feels a little jittery, a little jumpy. But to be honest, I mean, it's fine. Like, it was something that I noticed and that was nagging on me. Again, that was something that was really kind of nagging at me. That was probably the one thing that was bugging me after I saw it the first time. And after I sat down and saw it the second time, it was fine. It was okay. I mean, I still think we could probably use a couple more quiet scenes, a couple more, like, little human moments where people are sitting around and having like a decent conversation. But that's clearly not what they were going for there. And in the end, it's fine. One thing I think a lot of people have expressed problems with is that it feels like a rehash of A New Hope. And I don't really have a problem with this. It doesn't feel like that to me. I see what they're saying, and I see the similarities, but it doesn't bother me. I'm not bothered by Starkiller Base being a third Death Star. I think that's mostly fine, although I would have liked more of it. I feel like they didn't spend any time with it. They didn't necessarily give us enough about Starkiller Base to make it worthwhile. So I think probably the problem isn't so much that it's a giant base that destroys planets. I think it just would have been nice if we'd gotten a little more info about it, and certainly if we had gotten to see more about the destruction it caused. It was only after the end of the movie that I realized, oh yeah, I guess they did sort of wipe out the whole Galactic Senate on the Hosnian system that they exploded, and I don't even think that came across super clear. It certainly didn't come across with quite as much emphasis as I think needed. But so that's probably my one thing that stands out now as a little bit of a problem. But in the end, coming away from it, you could say, okay, well, maybe they could have done that better. But I mean, I like what happened. The what happened of it, and the discussion that leads from that is all very good, and I have no issues really with any real similarities to A New Hope or to the original trilogy. They threw in a bunch of some inside jokes and some little things, and those are fine. I don't have a problem with those. They're fine. I could take most of them or leave them, but they're fine. But far and away, I think very easily, the best thing about this movie is the characters. These characters are great. The new characters are great. BB-8 is one everybody loves and I think lived up to expectations. Finn, let's say. Finn was probably one of the ones I was most excited for coming in, and he was fantastic. I think he walks, and it's good acting on the part of John Boyega. He walks a very thin line, I think, between being like just exuberant, like, and just peppy, like one-liners and trash talky, and having a ton of fun, and he never quite steps over the line into being like too cartoony. And he runs that thin line, but he plays it really well. So I mean, he takes it right up to the point where you could say it could take you out of the movie. But I could see if some people thought he was a little too cartoonish, but I didn't. I thought he was great. And when Poe shows up, Poe is fantastic from the very beginning. He's hilarious too. And then when Poe and Finn meet up together, it's like they clicked immediately. Their chemistry is unbelievable. It's so good. The actors' chemistry, but then just the characters' chemistry together was so much fun. And I hope, I hope to get more of them, certainly in episode 8, but I wouldn't mind in like a whole side feature buddy road trip kind of movie with Poe and Finn. I'd watch that all day long. Like I said, Kylo Ren, who I'm mostly starting to call Ben now because he's such a much more interesting character. But I mean, he was so interesting. Like, he was such an interesting character. He was so kind of flustered, and people keep saying, he was a hot mess. He throws little tantrums, and he doesn't know what he's doing totally, and the idea that he's committed to the dark side but keeps feeling a pull to the light side is a really, really interesting juxtaposition to other things. And so I mean, like, that's going to be great. It's going to be really great to watch. I really have no idea exactly which way it's going to go. They're going to try to do some kind of a redemptive arc of some sort, I suppose, but we'll have to see which way it ends up going. I have no idea. The original cast, specifically Leia. Leia didn't have a lot to do here, but she was great. It was great to see her again. And then Han Solo is and Chewbacca, really. I mean, like, I was amazed just how well they fit right back in, especially Harrison Ford. I mean, it didn't feel like Harrison Ford. It felt like Han Solo. It felt like an older Han Solo, and I was sort of surprised that he could pull that off. I don't know why exactly. I believed it was Han Solo. But the star of the show here for me is Rey. Like, she owns this thing. I mean, those moments, the early on moments, when I felt the pacing of the movie was great, when we were just getting to spend a little time with her before she even speaks, when she's crawling through those the remains of Star Destroyers and gathering up scraps, looking for metal and stuff. She slides down that sand dune on her little sand sled, and I mean, the theme music for her plays, and those early moments. She gets her food. Probably what might be one of my absolute favorite moments of the whole movie was when she sits down to eat in the shade of the AT-AT foot, and she puts on this old X-Wing pilot helmet that she's found somewhere, and it's a little too big for her, and it bobbles on her head a little bit. She sits with her knees propped up, in a very sort of ungraceful way, and just eats her food, and she's wiggling her head around, and she's having a nice moment. She's having a little fun, even though her life is pretty bleak. That was nice. And then and they did that perfectly, and that sets you up. She's sitting right there, and you basically know what her life is at that point. And then right after that happens, you hear BB-8 in the background, and her whole life changes from that point on. And it was fantastic. I would follow her anywhere. I would follow her through any adventure, any story, anything. She is fascinating. They certainly lay it on thick as to who her family is, the family she's waiting for and stuff. And initially I thought it might be Han Solo and Princess Leia. I'm not sure how she would have got there then. It seems like that they take that away. Then they start to compare her a lot to Luke. It feels like the story is sort of leading you towards believing she might be Luke's child. I just don't know. I have no idea, to be honest, at this point. I really don't know. She could be just all on her own, and that might be most interesting. I have no idea, but I cannot wait to find out. The Maz Kanata, that character was great. I have no real issues with CGI stuff, but I've always thought CGI characters tend to be a little sketchy, but she was great. She looked great, and they clearly had a lot of confidence in that character, because they didn't hesitate to get right up close on her face, and they, sometimes you can tell they're trying to hide it so it doesn't look too phony, but man, they were right up on her, and she worked great, and the line deliveries from Lupita Nyong'o were fun, and that whole sequence was good. And then of course we get the Rey touching Luke and Anakin's lightsaber, and this Force vision thing, and that was just, I can't even really break it all down, but it was amazing. That was super cool, and I'm glad to see us finally get some like Force vision stuff, because I think that was super cool, and all the stuff in there, little clues and hints and stuff. I mean, we might be breaking those down certainly until Episode 8 comes out, but maybe even longer. There's amazing moments, the lightsaber fighting, especially, as the end of the movie happens. We get Finn and her together fighting against Kylo Ren. And I mean, that sequence just tells us everything we need to know about all three of those characters. It was great. It was well made. That Rey is like a Force savant. I mean, she comes out of nowhere. She doesn't know anything about it in theory, but I from earlier in the film, they talk about her thinking Luke Skywalker was a myth, and to me that means maybe she's been reading about Jedi or listening to tales about Jedi, and so when she starts to feel the Force, it really might come naturally to her. We'll have to see, sort of where that goes and where her Force ability comes from, but I mean, that was just fantastic. I mean, it was fantastic the way she stepped in and controlled sort of the whole thing at the end there. So yeah, and then in the end, after we've heard talk about Luke Skywalker through the whole thing and never seen him, and everybody's looking for him and everything else, they get these pieces of map together, and they discover where he is. And the last thing we see, she climbs these steps on this mountain, and she sees him there, and it's Mark Hamill again, and Luke Skywalker, and he looks like I might expect him to look. And that was, what a way to end that. What a way that it's frustrating, because man, I really wanted to see Mark Hamill as Luke talk and speak and do some stuff, but I mean, I can't argue with the way they did it. I mean, that is a heck of a punctuation to put on the end of this movie. I mean, really, really to say, don't forget this was just the beginning. So, from start to finish, I mean, it's really, really good. It's certainly what I expected. I miss George Lucas a little bit. There's a something there. There's a something missing from this movie. It's not any complaint about the movie, but there's something that just feels a little missing from George Lucas. And I love George Lucas, and he has a knack for just adding his own kooky, weird little spin on things. That his artistic flair or whatever it is, that wasn't quite there, and I missed that a little bit. But I mean, I got no complaints. I've got no complaints. I can't wait to go see it again and again. And you know what? I knew I was going to see the movie a bunch of times, but I'm really compelled to see it again. It's not. There's no functional. There's no obligatory thing where I say, oh, I got to go see it a bunch of times. I find myself just every day, the last few days, going, oh, I got to go see it again. I got to go see it again, because as I think about it, I'm like, I need to know. I need to remember stuff better. I need to do more stuff. I need to know. I need to remember it better. I need to know it by heart, so that I can, when I'm thinking about it, I can easily plug in all the things that I learned from it. Yeah, so it's here. It's finally here. We finally did it. We finally got to see it. We're now on the other side, and it's Star Wars movies every year for the next foreseeable future, I suppose. The next 6 years, I guess, or 5 years. So yeah, that's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting for sure. So until next time, may the Force be with you.